So, hey everyone, please keep yourselves muted. We are recording this program. Please make sure to visit our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and smash the like button because that really helps us out. So welcome to another educational and inspiring AAM workshop. This workshop is entitled Consistent Anti-Oppression, One Mother's Journey to Heal Her Broken Heart. The greatest force in nature is a mother's instinct to protect. In 2009, Jacque Salomon suffered a loss that catapulted her on a path to save her heart and find a way to live for her children. As she searched, she found answers to heal from the loss of her child, to understand her role as a mother and the role for the pain. What manifested was a fight for justice, life, truth, health, dignity, and respect for Mother Earth and all her creations. What emerged was an awareness propelling action to dismantle the evils of animal agriculture and industrialized farming. So my name is Michelle Granberg, and I'm your moderator. I'm a mentor and team member with Animal Activism Mentorship. I'm located in New Jersey. I've been a vegan and activist for 6 years. AAM's mission is to eradicate violence and build a culture of empathy and compassion, which ultimately results in animal liberation. We strive to build a global community of activists through our free online 3-month mentorship program that pairs experienced activists with aspiring activists. Through one-on-one mentoring, we intend to generate an increased number of effective activists worldwide because we know this movement needs more activists. Additionally, we offer free workshops that train and educate our mentors, mentees, and the public on various aspects of animal rights activism. We have a podcast called the Animal Liberation Hour, and we host large-scale in-person activism events. AAM is proud to be fueled by FARM, the Farmed Animal Rights Movement, one of the oldest AR organizations in the country. If you're interested in applying to become a mentor or mentee, or want to get involved or to donate, please visit our website, animalactivismmentorship.com, and follow both AAM and FARM on social media. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. Jacque Salomon is president, co-founder, and visionary of Seeds to Inspire Foundation. She shares her work and healing journey as a speaker and supports individuals as a transformational coach. She's going to share her professional experience as well as her personal story of loss and trauma tonight. Please visit www.seedstoinspire.org. I'll put that in the chat. Okay, so we'll open up for questions and answers after the presentation, so please hold your questions until then, and now I'll turn it over to Jacque. Go ahead, Jacque.
Hi. Ooh, that opening still gets me every time. Thank you so much for such a beautiful invitation. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but I want to ground myself in the space. What I'm going to share may be activating. What I'm going to share is going to bring an awareness to some very old charges that are being beckoned to be brought into the space. And I really feel that it was my invitation to bring that into the space and bring this awareness in. So I just wanted to preface that. So whoever's going to watch this today or in the future, to remember that we all have the same intention. We're all in this together. We all want the same things. So I invite you to sit with your discomfort a little bit, ask some questions. Let's be respectful. Let's be honorable, and let's have some delicate conversations. So I'm going to share my screen. And 1 second. So I want to remind everyone of the reason why you're animal activists, why you are here in this moment, why you said yes to listening to this story, why you said yes to the video. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional already. When you look at this image, I want you to think about what becomes alive in you. What is it that we perceive that we're looking at? Is there an emotion that's evoked inside of you? We all know that we make the decision to stop eating animal flesh and animal products because we make a connection. But I think I want to invite you on a path that's going to look a little deeper and maybe see some things. I may see some obvious, but are not so obvious. We are a trauma-informed organization, so all of our messaging is filtered through our advisors. And so this is a co-creation made in collaboration with our 2 advisors. In 2009, my family and I, we suffered a tragedy. My firstborn son passed away from a severe allergic reaction to a pharmaceutical prescribed as a mood stabilizer. It quickly became acid, as much on the inside of his body as it did on the outside. And he passed away in a burn unit in New York City while in a medically induced coma. And he was 11 years old. So this path that we're going to go on together is how I found a way to save my heart and how I found a way to live for my children, because my twins were only 7 at the time. So it kind of started out with this idea of I wasn't mourning the right way. That's what I kept hearing. Everyone was, you're so strong, you're so strong. And I kept wondering what that meant, because I also kept hearing like that I just wasn't mourning like normal people. And I started thinking like, what does that mean? And I think it started with like, I wasn't angry. I wasn't angry at God. I wasn't angry at the doctors. I wasn't angry at the pharmacist. I wasn't in blame. I wasn't raging at the world. I was like, okay, what's wrong with me? This was my babies. What's wrong with me? Like, all I could do was just remember every day to breathe and show up for my boys. And why there was no room for anything else, I didn't understand. So it begins there. And this is how I uncovered the real story. I went on this mission to kind of learn how to guide my children through this hell. How? Do I even know what it takes to do this? I had to go really deep inside, because I'm a mom. First and foremost, I'm a mother. I'm a caretaker, I'm a healer, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a caregiver, I'm a teacher, I'm a lover, and I'm a fierce defender of health and truth, right? Like, that's what I thought. That's what I thought I was. But all those things, and I failed. I failed as a mother. And that had become my story. So then the story was become a better mom. You did it wrong once, you become a better mom. You become a better mom for your twins, you become a better mom for your son, because he's always going to be your son. And even though he's not in this form, but he's still your baby. So learn to be his mom. Learn to be better, better, better. That's what I did, live for my baby. So I dove deeply into learning. I was learning because I wanted to understand. I wanted to find meaning and understanding in what was happening. Because I was refusing to believe the stories that were being told to me through culture, through religion, was that there's some way that I had done something wrong in life, and that this was some form of punishment, that there was some force greater than love that was put on me and used my son in a punitive way. And that was the story that kept trying to take over. And I just refused. I refused because I'm love, and love always wins. And that's my story. So as I dove deeper and deeper and deeper, what started emerging was this awareness. Like the more I learned was just this awareness that was way greater than anything I could have ever imagined. I had this need to get to the root of it. Like I couldn't, the idea of just kind of putting Band-Aids and getting over it was not an option. I needed to understand, I needed to get to the root of it. I needed to understand the sorrow. And so what I was learning started activating an ancestral rage. An ancestral rage came alive inside of me. And then it was like, wow, what do I do with this? This is where the rage is. What do I do with this? So I had to find a way to channel it. And what happened was, in searching for the way to channel that ancestral rage, this fight for life and justice and truth and health and dignity and respect for Mother Earth and all of her creations, that what took the space. So my mission, my new story, was to eradicate the evils of animal agriculture and industrialized farming. And I'm going to share with you what I discovered that brought me to that conclusion. So in 2016, I went whole food plant-based for health for me and for my family after watching Forks Over Knives. My goodness, Forks Over Knives transitioned overnight. My twins were just 50 years old, poor babies, but we did it. You know, I registered, I went and got certified, the certificate of plant-based nutrition from the Center for Nutrition Studies. And I learned and I learned and I learned, but it was there that I started learning about the intersectionality. It was there in that program that I learned about animal rights. It was there that I learned about the policies and the procedures, that the whole system was in each other's pockets. And that just gave birth to a whole other deep justice fight, because at this time I was fighting the school system for my children that learned differently. And I started seeing that I was actually fighting two different fights. And it all came together. And I was like, yeah, no, something's here. Something's here. And so what I want to say is that as a student of quantum physics, as a student of the mystical teachings, as a student of the ancient wisdom texts, this is what I've come to experience, is that unfortunately veganism is currently divorced from its esoteric and spiritual significance that it has for humanity of today. And I want to say that one more time because it's not easy to say, but it's a conclusion that we came to, is that veganism is currently divorced from the esoteric and spiritual significance it has for humanity of today. We who identify as vegans must evolve our narrative as caretakers and warriors for the sake of the whole system. We must journey, and this lens that I have, let it serve as an insight, like to what brought me to this understanding. It's all I ask is that you just look through the lens and see if you can follow my insights to what got me here. Because that fundamental truth that we must fight for liberation for all beings or our species, we perish. This movement is demanding the most courageous and conscious real sacrifice of our lives. Each living human being is being called to respond to something greater than themselves, greater than even humanity. In response to what's going on, we need to step up with genuine discernment and a willingness to sacrifice not just our food choices, but we have to be willing to sacrifice our core beliefs, our core conditioning, because those beliefs and conditioning is what mobilize our unconscious behaviors. So we truly aim to succeed at liberation of all non-human animals, we have to go deeper. So to understand what I was feeling and how I was drawing these conclusions and bringing me up, let me take you on a little journey of like the fundamentals. So this is what I learned when I started uncovering what is a mother. This journey is me as a mother. What is a mother? So to discover what a mother is, I had to understand what creation was. And we live in a world of polarity, which I've learned through trauma and conditioning has devolved into duality. And I invite you to take the next few slides, kind of like I see it, those are the foundations of like my personal evolution. And here we see the qualities of one of the primordial forces that lives within each of us. And this is the sacred masculine. This lives within each of us. This is things that we carry. And when I started learning about this, I started wondering, where were some of these qualities when it came to my son? The divine feminine is at the center of my story. And it hurts to say that also. Because we see the qualities here of the divine feminine and recognize these fundamental principles of masculine and feminine cosmic forces not only created us, but are us and live in every creation of Mother Earth. And understanding these principles becomes a cornerstone of my growth and understanding my behavior, my challenges, but mostly my strengths. But here's something that we really don't talk about, and we really don't connect to this conversation, and that's the divine child. And to me, the divine child is more at the center of this than anything else. The divine child is the cosmic force, is where your spirit right now is where your spirit is sitting. Right now, when you think about that, that's the divine child. It's your healthiest and most harmonic self. It's the part of you that remains unmanifested. It's innocence, purity, it's just infinite potential. So again, as I started laying these truths over my life, I was like, wait a minute. This is not the same story I thought it was. I started to wonder, how did it get this way? What happened? Obese, chronic diseases, disorders had me and my children on prescriptions, procedures. I almost died twice. And that was still not enough for me. It still wasn't enough to wake me up, because all my children, like I said, were diagnosed with neurodistinctness. We were all heavily medicated. We were all struggling either with school or work or diseases. I was on a slow suicide, and I was taking my children with me. Again, I was failing as a mother. Again, no matter what I was doing. And I was doing all the right things because I was following the guidance of the academics. I was following the doctors and the therapists. My son passed away. Yet I almost died twice, almost leaving my children, and we lived our entire lives in doctors' patient waiting rooms. I was exhausted, but I was committed, right? Because I'm a mom, and that's my story. And as it turns out, trauma was at the root of all of it. Now let's look at trauma. We understand that trauma is a singular, continual, and or continuous set of events that overwhelms the central nervous system, and it renders the being incapable of coping in the moment. That's what we know as trauma. But do we ever look at trauma as it affects groups? As it affects whole cultures, family systems? We talk about imperialism and colonialism as if these things are in the past, as if these are terms that have no living, breathing context in our current lives. You know what worse, in my opinion, is that we may be ignoring how colonialism and its practices are thriving today and literally destroying our ability to live on our home on this planet. But let's take a moment and consider that colonialism is but a thought, a belief system, a frequency, a vibration that moves our body, that navigates our thoughts and our words as human beings. What if we looked at it that way? What if that's the story of what colonialism is? These are ones on this screen right here, tentacles of colonialism that affected everyone I know and love. And once you show me injustice, once you show me that there's intentional harm, there's that mother activation in me again. So I went deeper. So let's start looking at these sins, these traumatic events. It is a scientific fact that Earth is our mother. Unquestionable. We see areas that have suffered repeated miscarriages in terms of crop failures, right? Knowing our mother feels the pain of all of her daughters, and we numb ourselves and we blind to that. Her daughters that she knows and feels are being kidnapped, enslaved, sex trafficked, raped, forcibly impregnated, their bodies used to sustain another infantilized species in the name of capitalism. After generations of scraping the depths of her womb, the oceans, her flesh, the land, contaminating her breath, the air, destroying her lungs, the trees, all resulting in clogged veins and destroyed skin. My God, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's time for us to adult. It's time for us to utilize our collective hearts, our understanding, and channel our righteous indignation and our vehemence, because it is time. It is time to stop. It is time to stop this assault that we're doing to our mother and sinning. We need to look at what we're doing to her and open our gaze and open our impact and understand. To adult, for her, we must understand responsibility and pain. Think about the fact that we're the only species on the planet that nurses until death. blows my mind how that just can remain under human beings' conscious awareness. And the fact that there's only a few humans that have convinced the rest of us that this is a commodity. This is a spiritual betrayal to us as siblings and offspring of the same mother. The voracious appetite of colonialism feeds off of the inner child life force of the divine feminine. And I'm going to say that one more time because that is a very hard truth that I carry. The voracious appetite of colonialism feeds off the inner child life force of the divine feminine. And this is done through the torture, enslavement, mutilation, commodification of the pre-developed feminine reproductive system and body parts. This is why I feel it is so easy to exploit, oppress, and pillage the divine feminine and all her dominant physical manifestations. Here's another sin, again, that we don't often look at as if it's connected, but it's part of colonialism. Artificial environments bastardize human functions that thrive and have great utility for tribal and communal health and wellness within natural environments. And yet, where are our children? Forced to be in artificial environments all day long against their nature, against their natural way of learning and exploring. That's a wound, spiritual wounds that carry into adulthood. Environmental racism is racial discrimination and environmental policy deliberately targeting of communities of color for toxic waste disposal and the siting of polluting industries. The food industry lives and feeds off of Black and brown communities. This is where they put their capos. This is where they poison the waters. This is where they kill people. And this is where it starts in our communities, in Indigenous, Black, and racialized communities. This is where they're concentrated. These evil torture chambers are strategically and intentionally built and maintained in historically marginalized communities. These communities ultimately get the least access to whole foods. They suffer the most from health disparity, and they die most often from health inequity. Their air, land, and water is polluted by these capos. And these capos eventually just demolish these ecosystems, but eventually spread out to all of the ecosystems that affect us all. So now I'm speaking to your hearts. And I'm speaking again to that greater purpose, that calling that brought you here to do the work that you do. The main source of pharmaceuticals, animal agriculture, and industrialized farming's financial supply comes from Indigenous, Black, and racialized communities. They drop fast food, processed food, imitation food, foods of no nutritional value, land-made food replicas with tons of harmful ingredients, right in the middle of our communities, and do not give us any access to whole foods. This is where these industries, this is where their supply comes from. This is how they stay alive and thrive. I think talking about poverty in children is probably the most critical issue because it's a huge developmental impactor. Poverty starts exerting its impacts before a person is even born. So for a pregnant woman who may not have adequate nutrition, who may be more likely to be more exposed to violence, who may be more exposed to environmental toxins and may not have adequate prenatal care, that child already, there's a disadvantage before the child is even born. It's always about the mothers and the babies. It is always about the reproductive system. It is always about the divine feminine and the divine child. Please hear this, please listen. Please make these connections. Climate gentrification is a real thing. It's been predicted that Earth has less than 60 harvest years left. And that means that children born this year will literally be starving before they're 60 years old. Arizona already averages more than 50 dangerous heat days a year, the second highest in the nation. And by 2050, Arizona is projected to see almost 80 of these days a year. And I live here. I live in Phoenix. Communities living in our at-risk zip codes are primed to be the first climate refugees. We have been manipulated into denying our senses and our intuition. We've devolved into human doings and forgotten that we are human beings. We must reevaluate who we are really being in our missions. Because as Mother Earth's children, we're forever connected to her. And everything she suffers, we suffer. And everything that happens to her happens to us. And everything that happens to one another happens to us. Do we not have one unified and collective mission? Are we not all seeing the same thing? Are we not all focused on our mission for animal liberation? Because you see, as I heal my body, I had the space for the other traumas that were showing up in my life. Because when I was really sick and really stressed out and really tired and with a broken heart, I didn't have time to think of much else. So imagine when people live with that trauma, how can we evoke them to make more of a sacrifice? We that have this understanding and make these connections, it's on us to make a further sacrifice, to show and be those warriors and stand up for really, really to get to the core of what's going to help us. So how much are we really, really, really willing to sacrifice? Are we willing to let go of all the things about us that make us uncomfortable? Are we willing to sit in that discomfort? Are we really willing to have these conversations? Because I realized that with every bite of food, that I was betraying my children, my commitment and my role as a mother, my non-human sisters, and my own mother. I was participating in matricide, infanticide, sororicide, and my love was being manipulated. And I needed to do something with this pain, more pain, because that hurt deeper than anything else so far. We must channel all we have into interfering with this monster that feeds off of non-human animals. Highly processed imitation food products derived from the industrialized farming and animal products, food, the fast food industry, which are maintained and flourish because they are concentrated in Indigenous, Black, and racialized communities. We all want animal liberation. So we need to get into the communities that are inundated with this imitation food and these animal products and get them healing. So they're off of the pharmaceuticals. So they're growing their own food. So they don't have to rely on the government with this colonized food. We don't have to rely on just what's available at the local store, that they can actually go into their own backyards, into their own kitchens and eat real food. We need to come together. We need to hone our skills. We need to channel our gifts to those who do not share our advantages. And please, I want to repeat that again. I ask us to do our own healing, to sit in our own discomforts, to make some sacrifices and hone our skills so that we can channel our gifts to those who do not share our advantages. And that requires good stewardship and requires for you to make the most of your talents. So let me show you what all this learning did for me and how I put it out there in the world to start taking this action, to take all this righteous indignation, to take all of this injustice, to take all of this connection. And when I realized that I was doomed through destiny to suffer the same consequences that generations and generations before me, and I was putting my children on a path unconsciously of living the same trauma that I had already lived. And so I learned that it's not necessarily the thing that we're pointing at that's the bad thing, but it's the way how can we channel our skills and our gifts and our talents, our experiences to address this thing in all of its tentacles. So I want to start here because this is how I chose to respond. And I want to recognize right now that with great honor and gratitude, the privilege of living, working, and playing on the ancestral home of the Akim, Adam, and Pipash people, my brothers and sisters that have welcomed me into their family and have adopted me in. When people of like-minded and like-heartedness come together, we contribute all our wisdom and all our skills, and we construct ways that empower us far beyond what we can accomplish individually. We come together synergistically, and we're interdisciplinary, we're multicultural, and we're all focused on dismantling health inequity and trauma through whole plant nourishment. As part of a large social justice movement, we're here to help not only dismantle health inequity, but we're doing that through lifestyle medicine, because it's not just about the colonialism and interrupting it, but it's also about getting people healthy and helping people then come back and recover and live their best lives and thrive on the other side of colonialism and its consequences. So by collaborating with anchor institutions and organizations focused on healing within our communities, we will restore the village for the children. We will be guided by thriving active elder wisdom, because that's one thing that I didn't have. When my son passed, I didn't have any elders. I had a whole bunch of elders, but I didn't have any elders to hold me and tell me how to heal my broken heart, what this meant, what was the role for the pain. So I had to reparent myself and I had to learn. And it's okay, because that learning was supposed to happen. My son has guided me this entire time because I'm supposed to be here talking to you about this. We as an organization understand that climate destabilization, industrialized farming, animal agriculture, environmental racism, nutrition apartheid, and health inequity are all tentacles of colonialism. Historically marginalized communities are most often composed of Indigenous, Black, and racialized people whose everyday lives, as just like it was with our ancestors, function in the conquest of colonialism and its ever-evolving consequences. We're a trauma-informed organization, and what this means is that we realize the widespread impact of trauma, we recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma and the multiple pathways to recovery. We respond by integrating that knowledge into our policies, our procedures, and our practices, and we actively resist traumatizing and re-traumatizing with the understanding that policies or procedures can unintentionally and quite often intentionally cause activation of the stress response system, which may cause new trauma or activate historical and ancestral trauma. So if we humble ourselves to really listen to the trauma, we can learn so much. Let's listen. A friend of mine once suggested that one of the things that Indian people have never really had is a kind of way to overcome the sorrow of conquest, the sorrow of being conquered. I think a lot of alcoholism has to do with looking around in a world in which our people are still oppressed. Although slavery has long been a part of human history, American chattel slavery represents a case of human trauma incomparable in scope, duration, and consequence to any other incidents of human enslavement. Not why the addiction, but why the pain. So why do we choose lifestyle medicine? Because lifestyle medicine is the use of evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic interventions. And we're all about the evidence. Lifestyle medicine includes a whole food, plant predominant eating pattern, regular physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky substances, and positive social connection as a primary modality delivered by clinicians trained and certified in this specialty to prevent, treat, and often reverse chronic diseases. So we developed this program, and it was developed to address health inequity in our historically marginalized communities by building upon lifestyle medicine's 6 pillars of health. So we have developed a customizable community-engaged program which incorporates the lens of trauma, especially from the colonial diet, social determinants of health, and acculturative stress. It's community engaged and customizable to meet the specific challenges and goals of our communities. Our programming is an integrative approach to whole system health and healing, because if we can help people see that we are one system, that we are one quantum system, we are one physical system, and we engage and entangle with systems, multiple systems all day long. If we can see that we can heal our system, then we can go and really truly understand the gravity of the impact that we can make when we're healthy. We understand climate destabilization, industrialized farming, animal agriculture, environmental racism, nutrition apartheid, and health inequity are all tentacles of colonialism. This affects the Indigenous, Black, and racialized people whose everyday lives, just like I said with their ancestors, live in these consequences. Because we do not come from with answers, but rather powerful tools that when combined with other healing interventions, synthesize into collective reimagining and solutions. Because we go to community, because out of respect, we know that you know your community better, because we meet people where they are, because we're about healing, we're about understanding, and we're about coming together with collective goals of healing the whole. And if I'm in your home, I'm going to treat you with dignity and respect. And I hope that you do the same for me if you visit my home. Why do we do cultural education? Because cultural healing leads to cultural protection, right? If we educate culturally, if we help Indigenous and Black and racialized people heal culturally, reclaim that then leads to cultural protection. And if we can empower healthy warriors to fight for their rights, and we come together as allies and co-conspirators, and we come together with that fight and that understanding that what we do for one, we heal the whole, that unequivocally addresses the root of the climate crisis. Our advisors are colleagues and community members with lenses of expertise and knowledge through which we filter our intentions on messaging, movements, and programming. Our advisors offer wisdom from a holistic medicine and anti-colonial perspective to guide and channel our resources and service into mind, body, spirit healing, collective resilience, health, sovereignty, and personal autonomy. Through our work with the HEAL Initiative, which is the American College of Lifestyle Medicine's Health Equity Achieved Through Lifestyle Medicine Initiative, we've built on the 6 pillars of health. And these, as we know, are consequences of the tentacles of colonialism. And this is what our communities fight every single day and are challenged with. So again, when we talk about our messaging as fighters of animal liberation, fighters for animal rights, we really do have to understand that there's different challenges for individuals to make these shifts. And if we come with a trauma-informed lens and we understand that there's other things going on, we can come together and we can support each other to make these shifts. We developed our cultural healing program. It's based on our conversation guidance from our advisors and other organizational institutions. And what we're trying to do and we're intending to do is to re-indigenize ourselves, to uncolonize ourselves, not the systems. The systems are born, the DNA is interwoven into oppression and exploitation. It is interwoven. Systems cannot be uncolonized, but the human being can. Our brains and our bodies can, and it's on us to do that. And that's what re-indigenization is about. We seek to collaborate with anchor institutions and programs in healing. And we believe that all mental health, behavioral health, physical health, and education should all be trauma-informed, especially for our Black and Brown communities. This quote is from a colleague and sister of mine that's my neighbor that lives on the Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community. And she reminded me that funding goes to hospitals and treatment centers, but there's nothing preventative. There's nothing culturally healing, and there's nothing addressing the trauma of colonization on a population. And that is truly the greatest point, especially that I get to live, play, and work in her home every single day. So our program is co-created, like most of the things that we do. We bring the wisdom in to help supporting one another. So it's 3 components. We grow food, and we do it the ancestral way. We do it the Indigenous way. We do it in honor with the flows of Mother Nature, the lunar cycles, and we do it with respect and knowing that what we put into her in love, we get back in love. I address all of the chronic diseases that come from the colonial diet and come from living in a post-colonial world, or we would argue an existing colonial world. And we also work with schools to bring and transition their detention rooms into mindfulness rooms, where we start working with the school systems and helping them to not only start growing food to bring cultural healing, because we know through eco-psychology and ecotherapy how incredibly important it is for human beings to be in nature. So we're going to start growing food. We're going to start talking to the parents about how to do this, how to reverse these diseases, and when to give those children a chance that come with trauma to find mind, body, spirit ways of re-regulating their systems. It's time that we get activated. It's time that we come together. It's time that we have this message. It's time that we have these delicate conversations. And if anyone that's listening to this, I implore you to sit in the discomfort. I implore you to sit in your yes and come together. We can do this. We can do this on a greater scale. We can do this if we get to the root of it. And we can do this if we all come together and fight for all oppression. Every single time a divine feminine is attacked, every single time a divine child is being stripped of their ability to be who they are in this world. Anytime oppression, exploitation shows up, it's on us to show up and say no more, not on our watch, because we're the vegans. And we know it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was really wonderful. Very, very hopeful, but at the same time, you really convey that sense of urgency, and there's so much to unpack. So let's see then who would like to talk to Jackie, ask a question, make a comment. I think Lisa, did you have a question? Did you want to unmute?
Oh, I could. I mean, I certainly could ask a question. I don't want to like jump in front or anything. I was more just doing my
No,
reaction.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, there's so many questions I could ask. I mean, how would you respond to and I know Jackie and I have talked about this before, so I hope that's okay, but I just know that it could be helpful to hear because I hear this so much lately where when talking about veganism or vegan issues, people often, but not always, white presenting people, sometimes non-white presenting people, most often they're white, will cite, you know, indigenous subsistence hunting practices as a anti-vegan stance. And I have found that, especially as a white presenting person, I get a little tongue-tied, like it's so hard for me to know what to do with that. I mean, I know what I could say. I mean, I know I could say like, well, animal agriculture is a product of colonialism, and I mean, like, blah, 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 and this and that, you know, but what, because I feel like that's a really hot anti-vegan argument right now. And so, not argument, just like facade or whatever. So what, I don't know, Jackie, what do we do with that, especially if you're white and you kind of are, do you know what I mean, don't feel like you can really speak on behalf of
Mhm.
of you know, Black and Indigenous people of color,
Oh, that's a great
from
question.
from a first person perspective.
Certainly, certainly. So first, I identify as an Indigenous woman. Technically, ancestrally, my family's from Puerto Rico. So technically I'm Boricua, which means that I have ancestral roots from the west coast of Africa and from the Taínos. So I identify as Indigenous because the reason why our lands were stolen and my ancestors were kidnapped was because they were Indigenous. So I want to start there. First, I like to ask people why they're asking the question in the first place, because most times it's just a red herring, it's just a distraction. But I do know from doing this work that there is a disconnect between the Indigenous Native American experience and the messaging of veganism. And there is that clash that as soon as the word vegan comes up, their ears shut down and they're turned around, they're not interested. And I've experienced it. And I know why. I know why it's the messaging. I know why I've experienced it. I've been in rooms, and I was sharing this with Michelle earlier. I've been in rooms where I'm having a conversation about veganism and I bring up colonialism and I bring up racism, and it's very activating. People want to say that veganism is about just the animals and want to just stay focused on the animals, and that's okay. But it's not enough. It's not enough because people are not just eating animals and they're going out and they're hunting, right? They're going to the supermarket and they're swiping their cards and they're picking up packages and they're taking it home. So that is literally what is destroying the planet. That is literally what is causing chronic diseases. This is literally what is making us fight. This is what is keeping this systems alive, is those hamburgers and hot dogs and processed meat and all the industrialized farming. That is what it is. So we can talk, we can get distracted and talk about individuals that we want to strip them or talk or challenge them of their own culture, which was already challenged, which was already stolen, which was already, we could just go on that. We know all about the residential schools. We know all about the intention and purpose and the slaughter and the genocide that happened on this continent, Turtle Island. So we can talk more about challenging individuals that have already have so much taken from them, and we can challenge them, or we can talk about you going to Taco Bell or picking up a pack of hot dogs, and that's destroying the planet. Which conversation are we going to have?
There's so much truth and power in that. What about, if it's okay, I don't want to like dominate here or anything, like what about folks who are then, doing the DIY, slaughter and exploitation, like in their backyard, or buying it from someone who does that, or they're hunting, like, oh, I hunt it myself. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be turning to you as
No,
like,
no, no.
these are things that
not at all.
vegans are getting asked about, right?
Sure.
So to bring in an indigenous person, because then they'll be like, because, hunting today, at least in what is now the United States, is primarily a white male pursuit. So that's the other thing I wonder about, this whole myth about like the indigenous subsistence hunter. I mean, like, how many people even really fit into that? Do you know what I mean? Into that identity anymore. I feel like hunting it's right. It's mostly like white guys with trucks and like high-powered weapons and sophisticated GPS tracking devices and stuff. Like, I don't know. So what about the, because this comes out with my students a lot, as you saw, like,
Sure.
well, what about humane, or what about when I'm just hunting and killing it myself and all that? Like, how do you respond to those kinds of things?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, this is why these conversations are so important. This is exactly why these conversations are so important, because if we can't have these conversations, we're never going to achieve animal liberation, right? So let's have these conversations. When we talk about hunting, the way you were describing, Lisa, that is colonialism. That is white supremacy, right? That is the domination, control, sport, and pleasure of seeking to hunt down, through overpowering, through stealth, an innocent being going about its way and stealing that life for their own personal accomplishment. And then we utilize that body and all its body parts, and we ordain our home with it. Not unlike what we did to my ancestors and their bodies. Animals are cut open, and they're, like we said, we have we ordain our homes. We just, everything is ornate, these parts of beings all over the house. However, we take the flesh too, and we use that, and we take the fat, and we use that, and we use the blood, and we cook the blood, and we cook the flesh, and then we dip it in the cooked and seasoned blood, and all of that. The same thing we did with my ancestors.
Yeah.
My ancestors were consumed. The same thing that was done in Europe with corpse medicine. This is old practices that we cannot compare with the way indigenous people lived in harmony and reverence for the earth. So just because it's using the same word hunting does not mean it's the same thing, because when my indigenous ancestors went to the land and asked and needed to sustain themselves and their families, yes, they engaged in ritual, in honor and respect, and they felt a sorrow, and blessed the land and blessed the being, and so appreciating gratitude. See the difference with the hunting? There's a sorrow, there's an understanding, and there's a gratitude, and there's a paying it forward. And then there's a taking and hunting down and being stealthy and stealing for pleasure and sport. We can't even compare the two. And the fact that we conflate the two so that we can have an argument, it's really, not only is it insulting, it is just evil, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Great questions and dialogue and good comprehensive answer. So I know there's only a few of us. So Brianna or Alton, do you have a question or a comment for Jacque? Just go ahead and unmute.
Hi. I don't have a question in this particular moment, but I just will express my deepest gratitude. Jacque, as I say to you often, I'm just so forever grateful for you, how much I've learned from you and with you, and you inspire me so much. And Jacque was the person that inspired me to become vegan for a time, and I kind of shifted out of that. And I am right in this moment actually have been making my way back to it. So thank you again for re-inspiring me to make these shifts, and all the reasons why, and how that is already aligned with all of my values, and the importance of it. So I feel like there might be a question that will come through, so I will circle back around to you if one does percolate. But in this moment, just thank you for this time and for all the work that you do. Much love.
That's perfect. Just keep our sacred space. This energy is so nice here, and Jacque really is setting the tone for that. So Allison said in the chat, she just says she looks forward to hearing how we can get involved. Is there anything you want to say about that, Jacque, and how all of us here can get more involved with your organization, or, you know, maybe some steps or actions around that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Allison. There's so much work to do. There's so much work to do. And yeah, I'm spread kind of thin because I serve on several boards, and you know, I just have like service ADHD. So like anytime there's like, oh, here's like, I have a talent, a skill, and experience that I can contribute, I'm like, so I'm just inviting everyone that finds their passion, that finds this message that resonates within you. Everything that you do serves the greater good. So if you take your talents, your skills, and you infuse that with that message in your heart, and go out into the world and be your best self, be your healthy self, focus on you. I'm telling you, it's contagious. Yeah, my kids, yeah, that was a little forced, but we found fun ways to do it. But the rest of my family, my sister that reversed some of her MS, that didn't come from me berating her. That didn't come from me forcing her. That didn't come from me shaming her. They came from me being my best. That came from me showing how my compassion was expanding. It came from me being able to think clearer. All of a sudden being able to talk about things that 2 years before, if the subject came up, that was it. I would just shut down and be depressed for 3 days. You know, I could sit in those spaces a little bit more and say, wow, this activation is not so much. Maybe it's because I'm not consuming all of this charge and this stress and this hormones and this fear and this suffering. I could sit with my own suffering. So I implore everyone to do their own work. Start your own healing, because this work requires us, my goodness, it requires us to use all of our senses and stay grounded in the reality that the most of the world wants to gaslight us into believing doesn't exist. So it's on us to heal, to stay present, to stay loving, to hold that space, because these charges that people get in response, when you address people's identity, their core belief systems, their inheritances, their traditions, their addictions to like the foods, that's a lot of challenge. Remember what it was like when we first transitioned. Yes, some of us do it overnight. I'm just one of those people that you face me with an injustice. I'm like, okay, done. Decision made, not doing this anymore. It's not that easy for everyone. So be mindful of that, meet people where they are. And if you're interested in supporting us in any way, please reach out, go to our website, we're on social media. We love ideas, we love contributions. We do programming, like I said, we do jumpstarts for the community where we provide 10 days of whole food plant-based meals. made by community members that we call culinary medicine practitioners within the community, and everything is about community supporting and helping community. So we have community gardens, and we're learning and teaching the local gardeners how to, again, utilize the cousins that are here and learn the ancestral ways of not only getting sustenance from Mother Earth, but doing it in a way that in reciprocity and respect. If any of this resonates with you, we're always taking donations. You can sponsor a family or an individual to go through a jump start. We have so many different things. Sign up for the newsletter, just be a part of it and give us ideas and do anything you can in your community. Everything is necessary. So please know that everything you do matters.
I love that. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So, I mean, I have maybe something you could talk to. Like, could you talk to like self-care in terms of, you know, I do street activism. And I know from what you're saying, everybody brings their own trauma to the filters through which they see the animals, and the reasons why we're motivated to help the animals, because we're seeing them and their trauma, and we're also, you know, coming from the inner place of our own trauma, which makes it double, triple as much trauma. You have the firsthand trauma of getting triggered by your own trauma, and then you have the secondary trauma of the witnessing, the bearing witness. So I mean, all of us, to whatever degree we do it, bear witness either through footage that we see. It's so hard, or through photos, or, you know, images, or in person. I mean, I've gone to vigils. I don't know if anybody else has gone to vigils. I've only gone a few handful of times because of how hard it is, and yet we do it because somebody should be there. They should not be going through that alone. They should not be invisible. If I was going through that, I would at the very least want someone to say, you're seen, you're heard, you're acknowledged, you lived. And you know, sleep easy, rest in peace, and you're not gone in vain, and we'll keep, you know, all that, and those higher thoughts, but also just the images are burned forever. And this is what makes me an activist. But the images, seeing their eyeballs through the slots in the truck, or passing a truck on the highway and looking over, and I don't want to look because I know I'm going to see, and I can see, and the cows or the chickens that I'm passing, and all of that. Like, what do you say for self-care? That's a practice or a mindset strategy for helping with that trauma. Seeing a counselor, of course, could be good, right? A vegan counselor.
I was just going to suggest that. I've actually had several community members that have heard me speak reach out for a specific reason, that overwhelm the central nervous system. And this is usually people that just transition like 1 or 2 years, are just discovering the animal activism. And it is just flooding with trauma that just got unleashed, Pandora's box. And it really does overwhelm the central nervous system. So what they asked for specifically is for counselors and therapists that, again, not just trauma informed, because that's a good start. I would start immediately, get a therapist that's trauma informed. Search, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm part of a vast network of trauma informed practitioners. So if you need support there, please let me know. I'm also a trauma informed practitioner, so I support individuals heal and understand and refortify themselves. So the first thing we do is we do talk about your own trauma, because we have to fortify ourselves. We're deeply empathic people, or we wouldn't be doing this. We're empathic people, or we wouldn't be doing this. We feel, literally experience the pain in the other, and it overwhelms us, and we have to do something because I can't take the pain anymore. And your question is so beautiful, and it brought me to 2 points. And the first point is that personal trauma. If I had not healed, or was not as significantly on my own healing journey of understanding the loss of my son, when I came across the reality that mothers, every single day, thousands and thousands and thousands of mothers that live in that caveful that I drive by every single day, have lived what I have lived through over and over and over and over again in one lifetime. What I have spent over a decade, and I'm still healing, if you could tell, trying to figure out and get through, those mothers every single day, over and over and over again, are reliving that and watching their sisters go through this and they can't do anything about it. That was too much for me to bear. So I needed to do my own healing so that I could show up for them. And I think that's in regards to anything you do. I think we really owe it to ourselves to do this service from an overflow instead of a deficit. And that's something that's conditioned in us, is that self-sacrifice, that martyrdom. Listen, martyring is all ego. Let's be real. Martyrdom, it comes from an ego. The belief that you sacrificing your life and your well-being for the other. No, what they need is for us to be healthy, for us to be there, longevity, persistence. We need to have our message grow stronger, more impactful. We need to be our best in order to show up our best. We cannot break, we cannot run down. We have to harness that divine feminine, that sacred masculine energy. We have to bring this in the moment. We have to be the vessels of the divine. We have to treat these bodies like temples so higher consciousness can flow through us and break through this conditioning and this programming that has people so asleep, that has people so sedated, that has people literally making decisions that the detriment of their own health, their own well-being, their children. We don't inherit the earth, we borrow it from our children. And we are on a mission to destroy that. You know how asleep we have to be? So we have to be healthy because we have to be higher consciousness. We have to speak with clarity, with truth, with love and honesty. And we have to deal with activations in others if we expect and hope to help people see and elevate and wake up out of the fog. It is on us. It is absolutely imperative that we be our healthiest. And what that means, sometimes I can't look at videos. I can't do that anymore. I know every single day when I meditate, every single day I show up 100% to do the work that I need to do the best way I can do it. My personal trauma is still healing, so I cannot be a witness to that trauma. But I know it's there and it's enough to fuel me. And sometimes when I'm feeling a little, like a days ago, I drive by the cave folk, and that's all I need. I drive by and I say my blessings and I throw my kisses and I say, thank you, sisters, and I'm back. I'm back. So we need to know where our wounds are, and we have to have community. We have to hold each other. We have to honor our process. We have to learn what's inside of us that brought us here and heal. And we have to stay focused on our intention, and whatever way is going to get that done, show up. Meet people where they are. Everyone cares about health. Everyone wants to be their best. If we meet people where they are, this message can heal everyone. This is a multidimensional, multifaceted message. And if we own that as vegans, we literally can come in front, all unconsciousness, all oppression, and say no more. We can do that. It's on us. We just have to want to heal, deal with our own deprogramming, and come together with one united front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. We have to hold that higher vibrational, we have to hold the space for those who can't or won't at the moment, and hold that outcome and hold that intention, hold the world we want to see, hold people in the way we would, that really is their highest self. What do you say to people when they literally deny that animals have feelings? They're pinched off from their empathy, or do you spend too much, maybe not spend so much time, not trying to convince them, but what do you say, I guess?
I love that question.
When they say those mother cows, they're just like machines. They don't really feel, they don't miss their children. They feel nothing when their babies are taken.
That's a denial of reality. That's a denial of science. And I'm not one to go into those low vibrational conversations. I have been fighting. And again, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I see everyone's trauma. And that's such a significant trauma response, because no human being, we are all animals. We're all related. So for a human to literally defy evidence and facts and data and that lived experience, all you have to do is look and you can see it. So for you to stay in that, that's a whole other trauma. And there's a lot of us in this path with a lot of talents and skills. And there's a lot of us that are really, really, really good at standing up and getting into those arguments and getting into those conversations without activating. Those are some lawyers, and there's some people out there that do this brilliantly. That's not my thing. It's just not. I can do it, but it's not my thing. I'm a lover. I want to love. I want to heal. You know, there's wounded warriors and there's wounded healers. And I'm a wounded healer. There's wounded warriors out there that go out there and they will confront and they hold back and they will fight, but we're both needed because those of us have to create the new. Those of us have to triage the warriors that are falling down in battle. Those of us that they are saved and sending our way, we have to be there. We're both needed. So everyone, where do you find yourself in this? Are you that warrior? Hone those skills, be out there, do that thing, and don't expect all of us to do this the same way. Honor each other. Every one of us needs to show up the way we know best and use those skills. So personally, that's not me. I don't try to convince. I was raised in a home with narcissistic tendencies. So I'm quite sensitive to manipulation. I'm quite sensitive to rage and shame. Yeah, it doesn't work for me. So that's not kind of my way of engaging. My way of engaging is inspiring you, is bringing truth. Is hoping you to recognize the yes in you. And that's my role, is how can I help you heal and how can I help mitigate the suffering and what can I teach you and what tools can I help you so that you can liberate yourself. That's my role, but everyone has a different role. Find yours, celebrate yours. And I love it because I don't have envy. I'm just like, I can't do that, but I'm so glad you're doing it.
So you're saying that for the most part, you sort of wait for people to come to you. I mean, you know, you put it out there that you have this message and then you sort of trust that whoever comes to you is ready. Like there's a synchronicity between you and that person, that there must be some openness maybe to some degree.
No, not necessarily. So the way I really do it is that I go, again, because I'm a consistent anti-oppressionist, I go wherever there's oppression and I just show up and I meet community and I belong to each one of those communities because like I said, as a vegan, I'm consistently anti-oppression. Now what happens is in those communities, eventually they start recognizing that I'm vegan and start wondering, what is a vegan doing there? What does that have to do with being vegan? I can show you how me being here has to do with me being vegan. That's where the conversations start. That's where I start opening up into I reversed my chronic diseases. I was able to live. I reversed obesity and reversed 164 extra pounds. Now the conversations come because that's what people care. That everyone wants to be healthy and wants to be trauma-free. And this message can resonate with everyone. So we just show up consistently anti-oppression. If we show up trauma-informed and we just show up in community and co-conspiratorship, this message will get through and people will want to know because they respect you, they appreciate you, and you inspire them and they want to know. So that's how I do it personally. It usually happens through my speaking engagements where people invite me like this to speak. And then the other way is that we collaborate with organizations in the community that are already working on healing. But the thing they're not addressing is growing food, the chronic diseases, the nutrition literacy, the culinary medicine. Those are the things that they're missing. So when people hear, or we go and we do our programming pitch, they're like, oh, that's what's missing is the nutrition. And that's how we merge together. And then we evolve and develop even deeper programming that really does bring into the interconnectedness. And it all starts with growing food and getting people healthy.
I love it. So the floor is still open if anybody else would like a chance now to ask another question or comment on anything you've heard thus far. We have a little bit more time. So does anybody else have some feedback or a question or want to just throw a little nugget out there? If you do, go ahead and unmute. If you don't, that's quite okay, of course, as well. I was going to ask maybe Jacque, then from the spiritual, I know you said a little bit about this in your presentation, but from the spiritual lens, the spiritual perspective, from that model, why is there seem to be such a rise in racism or a normalization of racism from that bigger wounding perspective again, or that energetic perspective. Why is that playing itself out so visibly?
Okay.
It might be another hour in and of itself. I know.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to find, so basic, again, through the lens of a quantum lens.
Yes.
Just imagine that we're just, again, we're created, this third dimension is polarity. So there's got to be a balance, right? But it's also vibration and harmony. This universe is made of a symphony. We're all harmonic, we're all instruments of the divine, we're all vibration. And music is just the audible, it's just a physical manifestation of those vibrations. So if we look at that at a lens at humanity and what's going on, there's discordance, right? There's the messaging. Mother Earth is evolving. Some of us are awakening in this age of Aquarius with her, are feeling that calling, are rising up. We just have this need to get healthy. We have this need to say, you know, I can't do this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. And I have to tell you, the youth that are coming up, whew, this next generation is fire and inspiration. They are just done with the conditioning, done with the programming. So I think it's the influx of that new light that is then setting an imbalance. Because what we fear, we hate. What we fear, we don't understand, we seek to destroy. And so when there's that imbalance, what the nature does is there's an influx of the opposite to restore balance. So as this new age is coming up, where we're healing and we're evolving, and we don't want to be witness to suffering. We don't want to engage in suffering. We want to do things better. The other side is going to say, okay, but everything we've had for centuries is about to be destroyed. And we like it this way. And so they're going to ramp it up. And they're going to hold on. They're going to hold on to the things and the systems, because honestly, veganism is a whole other earth. It is a whole other earth. It is a whole other humanity. It really is an evolution of humanity. If we step into our hearts, if we align our thoughts and our actions and our words, manifestation comes from the voice. Manifestation is vibration. So we're speaking from an instrument that is fine-tuned by our habits, by our community, by our relationships. We're sleeping well, we're compassionate, but we're autonomous. We create art, we love deep, we stand firm. Can you imagine the new earth that's created if we get healthy? Yeah. Everything else is going to fight against that. Patriarchy, capitalism, all that is going to say, whoa, we like things this way. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. And again, it's part of the alchemical process. We're in an alchemical process. And it's time for us to step into the fire and purify, find the elements of humanity of this phase that worked for us. God is here. We're not going to throw everything out. Let's be grateful for the things that God is here. And let's let the rest go back into the soil as nutrients. And let's build a new earth from there. Our children deserve it. Our future progeny deserve it. Non-human cousins deserve it. Mother deserves it. And we're hurting her. We're hurting her. And for her to survive and save all of her other children, she may have to abort us. So let's not put her in that position. Let's do right by her. Let's adult. Let's adult, and let's not depend on her so much. And let's take care of her and love on her and build on her and show her gratitude. I think that's the way forward.
Allison or Brianna, do you have any questions or comments for Jacque or about anything that we've said? Anything that's coming up for you that you want to share? Yeah, it's funny because I was going to ask you, how do you balance the hope in this dystopic world, or it's woven into, we are shifting, and that's what we're seeing. You see more contrast, you see more of the opposite when you're shifting and growing and evolving, to a higher vibration. So that's why we're seeing such more contrast, because the other part of that is rising, in that way. what do you see, you know, in terms of, you were talking about kids? What's the role of schools and parents? I mean, I guess that's a big question too, in terms of, and where that overlaps with veganism, like, do you think we can ever get, it's not a vegan message, it's a global message, it's a spiritual message, but do you see any ways we can bring that into school, or do we want parents to be
Oh,
teaching
yeah.
more at home as well, of course?
Okay, so schools. I'm an advocate of self-directed, potential-driven education. So I believe and I know that nature learns. Nature learns through harmony. Nature learns from one another through multi-generationality. And the matrilineal way that my ancestors lived on this land was in harmony with earth. There was abundance. I mean, goodness sake, that's why white supremacy and colonialism, imperialism set its appetite on this land. It's because it was beautiful and abundant and harmonious, right? So there were no schools. There are no schools. You know why schools were created? Schools were created for two reasons. One, to create administrators for the empire. And two, was to take the indigenous peoples and leave them out of savagery and create servants. And it's still doing that to this day. So yeah, I'm not for the schools. But I think we can do better. I think we can do better by our children. I think that there's a transition phase that we can create. I think we can work together to create learning environments where there's facilitators instead of teachers, that we have opportunities for our children to learn multi-generationally and support one another. We have opportunities to let children learn naturally. They're brilliant. Children are brilliant. Children are explorers. And that's kind of like where my conscious parenting comes in. Like, we don't see children as these divine beings. We see them as just not quite humans yet, because they're not 18. And until we pour into them everything that we need them to become, then when they become what we say they are, then they get to be an adult and then they get to be an individual. Yeah. My greatest teachers in my life were my children. They're my greatest gurus. They're the ones that showed me that I didn't know anything about what I thought I knew about being a woman, about being a human, about being a person. It's that purity, because they're so close to the divine. They're so close to source energy.
And compassion.
We need to,
Still in touch
yes,
with that compassion and that empathy that so many
to
lose.
see the children, right? So we can honor that, we wouldn't be doing things the way we were doing. So that being said, with public school systems, we are working with public schools right now because we do have children in the system. The system still exists. So what we're doing, like I told you with the program, is that we're creating opportunities to deal with trauma and treat children as beings with mindfulness and health. We are working with school systems. Right now, we're working with the Tempe Schools Native American program. They've invited us to bring our programming in, and we're building, we're starting with 3 gardens on school premises, and we're negotiating a plant-based option for the school. And we've also transitioning their detention rooms into mind, body, spirit rooms. So we are really aiming on the youth. We're really aiming to go into these educational institutions and infuse them with light and awareness and evolve how they're doing things, because a lot of these people, most of these people really are in it for the right reasons, and they really are committed. So let's help them do what their calling is, help them evolve and do it better instead of criticizing or beating people down. Let's infuse our love and our consciousness in there and help them do it better. And eventually, as we heal and the world, the new earth seeds itself and sprouts, we won't need these schools anymore.
You and I might not be around for that, but maybe that would be it. Great. Every finger into a cross. We're gonna hold that outcome. Brianna, any other questions? Yes.
I don't have another question, but I'm just a moment of inspiration. There's been so many moments of inspiration, but you talking about the schools is it's just making me think about the ways in which I'm working towards implementing like a decolonial lens of how I teach. You know, I teach movement, I teach dance at a university, and that is a way that I'm trying to like bring a student-centered approach, and how that is decolonizing the body. And this like, no, I'm not like this all-knowing being that's teaching you about how to dance, you know? And I'm particularly really struggling this semester with, I'm really struggling with, I have the first year students, and it's just like, wow, they just keep like asking me what I want from them, and how should it be? And this is the way. It's like, no, I want you. I want to see you. I want you to bring your voice. And I have wisdom to share, but so do you. So I just appreciate this reminder, because you also said earlier, meeting people where they are, because I'm noticing I'm getting frustrated. But I have to meet them. They have to meet me. It's all a process of learning as I decolonize myself, and honor that this is a way that I'm, you know, doing this kind of work of. So thank you. Thank you again. That's just a nugget of inspiration about teaching.
Oh
Grateful.
my gosh, thank you for sharing that. Because, so quick story, my sister, so I'm 50, my sister's 53, she's gonna be really mad that I said that, but anyway. So we're sitting with some friends, and one of my friends asked her, so what is it that, you know, now that, you know, she's on disability and she's retired on disability, it's like, you know, did you ever have a dream? Like, what's your dream? And literally my sister just sat there, and she doesn't mind I tell the story, and she had no response. She had no response, because for the first time in her life, she realized that she had never done anything for herself, that everything was always about for someone else. So she had never really sat like, okay, so for no one else, just for me? I didn't know what that was like. I, for the first time in my life at my healthiest, I'm not in survival and not in reaction. Everything I've created in my life has always been in response to something that's happened. And I, for the first time in my life, is at a point that's saying, okay, I don't need to react. I know enough. What can I create now? And creating out of the void, creating out when you've been conditioned to align, do this, do that, that critical thinking completely blocks out all of that creativity. And our creativity and our intuition is oppressed. That's the divine feminine. It's oppressed. So when you ask us to be creative, it's like, okay, I felt like I was in a white room with like sensory deprivation and just blank. And that was horrifying. It was terrifying. Like, it shut me down. Talk about trauma. It was like, I have no imagination. I have no creativity. I blank. There's nothing there. It was so silent. It was a mere echo. And I think that's what's important about getting healthy. Doing your disciplines, exercising, sleeping well, doing your meditation, journaling, your morning pages, critical, because we have to start exploring the recesses of us, because our voice is there. We are creators. We are literally creators. And when our creativity is not, we can't hear it, that is such a wound. So thank you so much for uncolonizing yourself and the education for these students to help them find that again within them that they probably lost when they were children. Thank you so much for being there and doing that for them. The world is a better place when that creativity starts flowing and those movements start going, those waves. Oh, I love it. Beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Here, everybody bringing their gifts. So, I mean, I guess we'll wrap up. So, I mean, do you have any kind of final words, Jackie? Anything you'd like to kind of close with?
I think yeah. My message is one of love, but it's a fierce love. It's an unapologetic love. Right? I'm a wounded healer for a reason. Because where there's suffering, that's where I go. Where there's hurt, that's where I go. That's where my medicine serves its best purpose. And one of my teachers said, our ancestors always put us where our medicine can serve the best. And I trust that my ancestors are not wrong. So trust yourself. Trust when you feel that calling. Trust where your heart takes you. Don't let people interfere. It's not a time to be small anymore. It's not a time to hide. It's a time to remove all those masks. It's a time to go do your shadow work. It's a time to show up grab that inner child, love on them, bring them forward, and make sure all that potential comes out. We need each and every single one of you to do your thing. And I'm very grateful. And my children, my great-grandchildren are very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Time to shine, according to Jackie. Let's all do that.
Please.
So hold on for another moment. I'm just going to wrap up with some final sort of announcements. Really. And I just wanted to announce a few of our other upcoming workshops. Certainly, we'd love to have you all attend. On November 3rd, we have turkeys. Who are they and why should we care? On November 10th, we have activism for banning horse carriages. And on November 15th, we have thinking like an animal. And we have more workshops to be announced. So please, please check out previous workshops on our YouTube channel and subscribe. I'd also like to announce our 2023 live events, looking ahead to 2023. The AAM Washington, D.C. Week of Action is taking place March 14th through the 20th, 2023. And the Colorado Convergence is taking place in and around Denver. The dates are June 24th through July 1st, 2023. No experience required. All are welcome, but registration is required. So you'll find the events on our Facebook page and website. There's no cost for attending. These are activism events, but you have to, pay your travel. And there is a house that we all stay in. Anyway, details can be are posted. And that wraps up another AAM workshop. Thank you, Jackie, for your time and wisdom. Truly. Thank you all for being here and the tireless work you're doing for the animals. If you're interested in becoming a mentor or a mentee or want to get more involved, please reach out to any AAM mentor or visit our website, animalactivismmentorship.com. Meantime, we'll add you to our email newsletter list. And until next time, stay strong and live vegan, everyone. Thank you.